We will be beginning in just a few minutes here, right at 3:30. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Earthing Live. This is just a quick reminder that the information contained in this video is not intended as medical advice. And if you do have any questions concerning any kind of medical conditions, please consult your medical professional. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie Frank, and I will be your host for today as we speak with Dr. James Oschman. As mentioned in last week's webinar, Dr. Oschman's credits include over 33 full-length scientific articles published in some of the world's leading peer-reviewed academic journals. He has published 64 invited articles in various alternative and complementary therapy journals, and also published 6 books, as well as 3 United States patents. He's presented lectures and workshops on earthing and energy medicine in 24 countries, and is a contributor to both the Earthing book and featured in the Earthing documentary. Everyone, if you could please join me in welcoming Dr. James Oschman. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Okay. It's a delight to be with you. Thank you for coming. Here we go. We are celebrating the 20th anniversary of Earthing. 20 years ago, Clint Ober began work on this subject, and I joined soon after. And I've been on this ever since, and it's been a fantastic journey. Um, Scientists don't often have a chance to contribute to the well-being and the health of millions of people. And that's what this project is about. It's about millions of people who are uncomfortable and have health issues that are easily corrected. So that's what I talked about last week. Why is it that this simple method can correct so many different things? And the key is inflammation. And I suggested that there may be no diseases, there may just be different flavors of inflammation. And I showed a list of something like 5,000 different diseases, but they all have a common denominator, and that's inflammation. And grounding takes care of inflammation very quickly, amazingly quickly. I need to get my slides started here. Oh, here we go. Fireworks. And there I am. I answer questions. It takes me a while sometimes, but I'm very interested in everybody understanding this, learning as much as they can, and finding out what it can do for them. One of the situations that happens, some people think that when you're grounded, it makes your body an antenna for electromagnetic fields. People are worried about 5G, 4G, 3G, cell phones, cell towers, smart meters, 60 cycle electricity, all of that stuff. People worry about it. And Dr. Chevalier has made an excellent YouTube presentation where he goes into great detail about all of this. So I recommend that, and take note of this link to the video of, really goes into it very carefully. There he is, Dr. Chevalier. Um, and what I was talking about last week was at the end was the work of Roger Applewhite, an electrical engineer, MIT trained, very sophisticated gentleman. And he did a study for us to confirm the ability of earthing to reduce body voltage induced by electrical fields in the environment, such as 60 cycle electricity. It's all around us. And he did grounding by means of a conductive patch or a conductive bed pad. And each method reduced the 60 cycle electric field by a factor of at least 70. And the study was published in the European Biology and Electromagnetics. And here you see in the upper right the conductive patches, and here is the conductive bed pad, and both of these work. And this is what I was just getting to at the end last week. This is body voltage without grounding, and this is with grounding. And you can see that there's a huge drop in the voltage on the body measured at different places: left breast, abdomen, left thigh. This is with patches, and this is the bed pad. So it works. And this is what some people have been concerned about, um, that this might make you an antenna, and it doesn't. And Dr. Chevalier goes into the 5G and also smart meters and all the different sources that are very important to consider. They can disturb your health because they cause your electrons in your body to rattle back and forth 60 times per second. And we are electrical beings, and It's not good to have your electrons wobbling all over the place. So that's what I wanted to talk about there. Um, and now I'm ready for questions.
All right, we'll get right to it. Did want to continue off on that, just again, reiterating that the webinar Dr. Chiavelli presented on EMFs is a fantastic resource for a lot of in-depth knowledge on anything EMFs as it relates to grounding. So definitely worth checking that out. We'll see if we can get that in the comments here shortly as well. So the first question we actually did get from the webinar was from Susan, saying that she appreciated last week's presentation. So thank you so much for joining us again. And we will get right into some of the questions here. So our first question actually does come from a gentleman in India by the name of Vikas, and he asks, earthing has been known to produce weight loss as per some testimonials. And so he was wondering if it can do that even so in underweight individuals. And if so, then should one reduce the duration of earthing for underweight individuals?
Well, we figured out the reason that causes weight loss is because you don't get much exercise if you're in pain. If your legs hurt, your knees hurt, your ankles hurt, you're not going to go out and do your usual exercising. And with earthing, those aches and pains go away. So what really we think the weight loss actually comes from people being more active.
Absolutely, that's fascinating. All right, and also another follow-up question here, just wondering if earthing has been known to reduce food allergies at all.
I would say yes, because one of the things that happens is people have, if they have a severe allergic reaction, they may have difficulty breathing. It affects the respiration. Um, and so there are various conditions like that. And earthing definitely helps if you have a asthma, COPD, and I do believe that if you have a food allergy, you're likely to have similar kinds of responses.
And definitely those inflammatory responses to those allergies as well. It can absolutely
Right.
be helped.
Yes,
All right.
if you eat too much turkey at Thanksgiving uh, and you have to go lie down and groan for a while because your stomach is bloated and hurts, try going outside and standing in the grass in your bare feet and see how quickly your bloat goes away. It's great.
Absolutely.
And I like to eat a lot
Yeah,
at Thanksgiving.
absolutely. All right, and then moving on to our next question here, we do have someone asking just about your thoughts with regards to cancer and grounding, how the two can kind of play with each other there.
Well, cancer is an inflammatory, or can begin as an inflammatory condition. Um, I wouldn't say that earthing cures cancer, but it can reduce the inflammatory aspect of it. I mentioned last week that one of the classic papers that has excited a lot of people in the cancer world is a study from I think it's 1986, and the title is "Cancer: A Wound That Did Not Heal." So one of the things that I know is that people get bumps. Um, Massage therapists and other people who touch your body, Rolfers. I heard first about this from the Rolfers. They feel little knots in your tissue. And those are old injuries that haven't gone away. And what the body workers can do is they when they massage those little knots, they disappear. And there's a reason for that. Pressure causes the ground substance, the gel part of the connective tissue, the gel can get very dehydrated and hard and form a little knot. And body workers feel these all the time. I think massage therapists, for example, stop cancer in its tracks every day. When they rub a person and they feel one of those knots and they rub it and it goes away, that is a very important step in that person's health. So I'm not going to say that earthing cures cancer, but it definitely deals with the inflammatory aspect. And if you have a cancer, it's good to stay grounded as much as you can. Um, for example, you can put you can sleep on a grounding mattress pad, and if you want to make sure, you can put a patch on your sacrum that's connected to the earth, and that is really grounding you, and that really takes care of the inflammatory aspect.
Absolutely. With how ubiquitous inflammation is just with so many conditions that we deal with, I think it absolutely is something that can help in a lot of various aspects as well. And then we do moving on to our next question here. We do have a question from Judy, who's letting us know that her friend actually does have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And last week it was mentioned how important collagen is. And it tends to be an issue for her, I'm assuming because of the syndrome. And she was just asking if grounding could potentially help her friend.
I would have to look that up. I don't know much about that particular disorder, but I have, um, and I don't know what the symptoms are. Do you know anything about it?
I'm not familiar myself, but it does seem to be just related to collagen deficiency and definitely pain associated with the disorder as well, from what I gather from the question.
I know about one collagen disease, which is scleroderma. And scleroderma, the skin gets very rough and it's a very nasty, uncomfortable condition.
Mhm.
And earthing improves the circulation. And what happens in scleroderma is the skin is not getting an adequate blood supply. What happens is and this is true for a number of, it's also true for sickle cell anemia. What happens in sickle cell anemia is the red cells have a peculiar shape. They're shaped like a sickle, and they tend to clump up. And there's a very important place in your circulation where the arterioles go into the capillaries. The larger vessels, the arterioles, dump into the capillaries, and that's a very important place. And if that place gets clogged, you don't have very good peripheral circulation. So, and I have some slides of that that show what happens in scleroderma and in other conditions, sickle cell anemia, where the cells clump, and they won't do that if you're grounded. They will not clump, and the reason for that is that the electrons, the grounding, affects your whole body. It affects your circulatory system. So the red cells become coated with electrons, more so than if you're not grounded. And when they're coated with electrons, they repel each other. So they don't stick together. They don't clump. And that greatly improves your circulation. That's also very important for any cardiovascular issue. If you have a friend with any kind of cardiovascular issue, and there are lots of them, and they're all of them, by the way, and I looked into this very carefully, all of the cardiovascular issues are related to blood viscosity. And if the blood gets thick like ketchup, it doesn't flow through the veins and the arteries and capillaries very well at all. And you have a lot of problems. And they have different names. Peripheral artery disease is one of them, left ventricular hypertrophy, even arrhythmias respond to earthing. Some people have been incredibly pleased with what happens when they have these different um, cardiac insufficiency. All of these conditions are related to blood viscosity. And so earthing is fantastic. So if you know anybody who has any kind of cardiovascular condition, I recommend that they take their shoes and socks off and go sit outside with their bare feet on the ground. And especially at night, we should be grounded because that's 8 hours a day. We might as well, that's when regeneration occurs in our bodies. And that's a great time to be grounded. And you don't have to do much. You just have to put the pad on your bed or a patch, and that's it. Forget it. No refills required.
It's as easy as that. Absolutely. All right, we do have a question from our viewers on YouTube. This comes from Lone Star Gamer asking, does earthing help people with gout?
I believe it's in the list of conditions. I believe it is. I think we've had, we know about these things because thousands of people have written to the Earthing Institute thanking thanking us and thanking Clint and just raving about Clint, their gratitude to Clint for solving a nasty problem that they've had for a long time. And they've been to every doctor and it won't go away. And all of a sudden they find that earthing straightens them out. It's fantastic. It really is. So I'm not absolutely sure, but as I recall, gout is one of the issues that is uh, reduced in intensity with earthing.
Absolutely. So there is a fairly extensive list actually of conditions where people have found a tremendous amount of relief through grounding, and actually have just posted a link to that in the chat section there. Actually, we'll make that here. Just a moment.
Oh, good.
Here you are. Yeah, so there are definitely a multitude of conditions for which people have found, again, a tremendous amount of relief. So a lot of great information on the Earthing Institute website there at the link I provided. All right,
Yes,
moving
go to
on.
the Earthing Institute. Um, a lot of work went into preparing that institute website, and it's very, uh, very, very good. It's a very good website with a lot of work, a lot of information, and it has our papers, even
Absolutely.
some of
So
my papers that I wrote.
not only just an incredible knowledge base for, again, conditions that it has helped people with, but also the various studies that have been performed by the board of the Institute as well. So definitely a great resource for just a great amount of information regarding earthing in general.
Read those papers.
Absolutely.
One of them
All
is
right.
called Consider a Spherical Cow. I like that title. I made up that title.
It's always good to stay entertained with it. Absolutely. All right. And moving on to our next question here, we do have another question from Aziz Mode from YouTube and asking, how can earthing help kidney patients? I'm not sure if you do have any experience in that field as well.
Well, kidneys, if it's an inflammatory condition, it'll help. I'm not a doctor. I can't make a prescription. I can't do a diagnosis. But if you have some inflammatory condition with your kidneys, I wouldn't be surprised if earthing would help you out faster than you can imagine. Any inflammatory condition. You probably have inflammatory conditions that don't even show up. You don't notice them. It's called secret inflammation or hidden inflammation that may be festering away somewhere in your body, not bothering you. Silent inflammation, waiting to sneak up and get you someday. So get started. Get started with your earthing.
Absolutely. All right. So we do have a question here. It's actually a very common question we do get over on the customer service side of everything here from Jennifer asking if it is safe to ground yourself if you do have a pacemaker.
Yes, it's okay.
Absolutely.
Dr. Sinatra is a cardiologist. He's a famous cardiologist, and he's a great advocate of earthing. And if you have any doubts, you can. He will talk to you. He's a good man. He wants people to be healthy, and he does a lot to help heart patients. And you won't have any problem with a pacemaker. Um, in fact, Clint told me about one guy who had a heart condition. He had to shock himself every morning when he got out of bed. He had to put a big
Wow.
jolt of electricity into his chest to get his heart going up to par. He got grounded, he didn't have to do that ever again. It was gone. Whatever that was, it was gone. Arrhythmias, they go away. Fantastic.
Absolutely. All right. Now we do have actually a question here. Is actually referring to something you had mentioned during last week's webinar that earthing has helped with COVID. So I guess our friend Judy was asking if you could just elaborate a little further just on that.
Well, I can. Clint and I made a guess because earthing helps people with respiratory issues like COPD and asthma. It's very effective. And so the problem with COVID, the terminal problem is when you get pneumonia, you get a horrible inflammation in your lungs. And we guessed that putting patches on the chest would help. And we had a guy write to us. This is one in science, one experiment is no experiment. One testimonial doesn't mean anything. But this guy, his wife she had COVID and she was in bad shape, and he grounded her and she straightened out right away. He was amazed and thrilled. And so we wrote a paper, published it in an international journal. It's pretty speculative paper. I mean, guessing that because earthing helps with other breathing problems, it might help with COVID. And 3 months later, a paper came out from Iraq. And I talk about this in last week's seminar. A professor at a medical school in Iraq had a bunch of patients, lots of patients. I forget how many, but dozens and dozens and dozens of patients. And he found that earthing was incredible. He had one patient who had very low blood oxygen. Uh, that's one of the things they check. They put that little thing on your finger to measure your oxygenation. And this guy had very low blood oxygen, even with taking in oxygen from a tank. And as soon as he got grounded, his blood oxygen went up the first day, and the second day it went up again, and then he didn't need oxygen anymore. And the doctor, Musa was his name, I believe, he was astounded. And he also did some studies to see if earthing would protect you from getting COVID or getting the severe uh, symptoms that cause actually people to lose their lives. And so he grounded some people who were around others who were infected, and they didn't get infected. They didn't get they didn't get full-blown COVID. So we made a guess, and looks like we were right. I tried to tell the CDC about this, but they get lots of suggestions, and they said thank you. But you have to realize that every hospital bedroom has electrical outlets with good grounds. They're very good grounds. Hospitals have to have good grounding all through them. And all you need is a patch. You can plug it into the grounding out terminal of an electrical outlet, put it on your lung, preferably have two. And in fact, Flint gave away, nurses wanted these electrode patches, and he gave away, if you were a nurse, he would send you one, a set for free. I don't know how many he gave away, but that's how much faith he had, and that's how much faith the nurses had in it. They wanted these patches. And I don't know how many lives were saved by doing that, but I'll bet a bunch.
Absolutely. Moving on from there, we do have another question from our friend JP asking if he grounds every day, does he still need to worry about consuming extra antioxidants in his diet?
No, don't worry about it. I ground all the time, and I take all kinds of antioxidants. I did find out at one point that if you want To get antioxidants from, say, blueberries, you need to eat about 450 pounds of blueberries a day to get a good antioxidant, because these molecules, these antioxidant molecules, have to be digested. They have to go into the circulatory system. They have to be carried through the circulatory system to the place where they're needed. And that takes a while. And in fact, one of the ideas was to give soldiers um, grounding patches so that if they are wounded in action, put the grounding patch on right away. Even if you have an infection, it takes a while for if you get an injection of an antibiotic, it takes a while for the antibiotic to get to the place where it's needed. And earthing works instantly because the body is conductive. The body is made of semiconducting proteins and other molecules, and they are all wired together continuously, right down to every cell and across the cell surface into the nucleus of every cell in your body, and that's fast. So earthing, good thing to have on the battlefield.
Absolutely. I know I do see a pretty common thread to some of the questions that we are receiving here. And we do have some people who are relatively new to using earthing products and haven't quite found, I guess, a really rapid sense of relief after, say, a day or two, wondering if, just may need to be more patient, or if you have any advice for them moving forward.
You have to be patient with everything. I go to the chiropractor and I discovered that chiropractic is cumulative. Um, I go twice a week. It's fantastic. And I've seen people who just go and they take their aching back into the chiropractor and they get an adjustment and they say, well, that didn't do anything. It, it it's this is a cumulative process. So keep it up. Um, everybody is different. Some people have detox reactions and they don't feel good. And that doesn't mean that they should stop earthing. It means, like anything else, you might have to do a uh, slow dosing, like 15 minutes a day, and then try 30 minutes a day. And eventually you'll discover you want to be grounded all the time. It depends on how much inflammation you have in your body. Uh, some of us have a lot. Um, athletes tend to have huge amount of inflammation. Just watch what happens in a basketball game. How many elbows do you get in your face and your torso? How many times do you fall down? Those guys get wrecked. And one of the things they do is they get a recovery bag, or a sleeping pad, and they take them with them when they're on a road trip. And after a game, first thing they do is they get to their hotel room and they connect up their earthing pad, and they're ready to go again the next day. They're astounded at how quickly they can recover from the bumps and bruises that they get during a basketball. And football is intense. I mean, it's incredible. And the other thing about athletes that I didn't mention before is that when you run around, you get excess oxygen. You're in a state of, there's a name for it. There's too much oxygen in your body. You're huffing and puffing and you're breathing a lot. And that's called oxidative stress. And if you then fall down, you're in a precarious position to have damage. So you really need, like the sidelines of the football field, the benches should be grounded. They should have grounding on them.
Absolutely.
Of all the athletic, all branches of athletics.
All right, we do have another question here coming from Eve. asking what would be the minimal time that you would recommend for a daily outdoor earthing session, and are using grounding products comparable as far as efficacy to grounding naturally outdoors.
Well, I don't know. Some people really love to be outside. Uh, Dr. Chevalier recommends 15 to 30 minutes a day as that'll do it for you, um, depending on your condition. And I think that grounding inside and grounding outside are pretty similar. Uh, Clint is a master inventor, and his products are incredible. He's a genius, and they work. They bring the same benefits as standing outside barefoot in the grass. They bring those benefits into your home, and it's great. So I think it's probably either one is good. Fresh air is good for you. So,
Always. All right. We have our next question is coming from Chico, asking, does grounding reduce or support lower blood pressure levels?
um, well, I would say that given what we know about the effects on the circulatory system, what we find with everything we've measured is that things go towards normal. Things uh, balance out. So if you have high blood pressure, earthing will bring it down. If you have low blood pressure, I bet it'll bring it back up because the circulatory system is working more efficiently. Um, there's less um, chance of clumping, there's lower viscosity. Lower blood viscosity is a good thing. Um, I'd be glad to hear if somebody has low blood pressure if they try out earthing and if they find a difference. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Absolutely. All right, and so moving on to our next question. This is a question from YouTube. It's from Larry asking, well, he does state that since starting grounding with the mat all night, he does say that he's waking up about 2 to 4 hours earlier each day, but still kind of missing that extra sleep. And just wondering if that's a common occurrence or if anything might be wrong at all with that situation as well.
Well, some people like getting up early. Um, if you're like me and you're a writer, it's great to get up and do some writing. Um, so I like it, but that's about all I can say. It's not you're not hurting yourself. You're probably you're probably full of energy. Probably have more electrons, more ATP, and you can go out and mow the lawn. Not in the middle of the night. Your neighbors might not like that.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to our next question here. We do have a question from Heather, who's asking, or at least stating she does not have a mat, but asking if she can just use the patch on the sacrum while sleeping, just without a mat in conjunction with that.
That'd be great.
Absolutely. All right. And from there, we do have another question from our friend Akbar, asking if there is a connection between the electrons from the Earth and the mitochondria. I'm not sure if you could elaborate on that a bit there.
Well, that's what I talked about last week. And yes, absolutely. Mitochondria need electrons, and they can become, your body can become electron deficient. And we think that it's a deficiency disease, just like scurvy or any of the other vitamin D deficiency, vitamin C deficiency. Vitamin C is ascorbic acid. Uh, it looks like you need electrons, and your body stores electrons in the ground substance of the connective tissue, and it can get depleted. Um, and so you need the electrons, A, for energy, and B, for healing if you bump yourself. And it's amazing how, you open the cupboard door and bang your head, and that can start something that bothers you years down the road. So earthing takes care of that.
Absolutely. And I think our next question here is actually kind of coming off of a lot of what we've been talking about here. So not quite a question, but a statement saying that our friend Jennifer is noting that hasn't really had any kind of muscle aches or pain post-workout since starting grounding. So I'm not sure if you might have a little more information as to why that might be happening consistently across people that we talk to.
We did studies on that very thing. There's in sports medicine, there's a method uh, used to artificially create pain from overusing a muscle. It doesn't do damage. One of the things they did was they had their subjects put the balls of their feet on a 2x4, and they had to lift their body up, lift their heels up uh, 20 times or so many times, and that creates uh, creates pain. And then they divided these people into two groups. The group that had earthing, they slept earthing with earthing, and the other group didn't. And their response was totally different. The aches and pains, uh, what's it called? It's called delayed onset muscular soreness. It's what happens when you haven't gone for a run all winter, and spring comes and you get out and you go for a run, and you come home and you sit down, and pretty soon your legs start to hurt. Muscles start to get sore. Or you mow the lawn for the first time in the year and you start to have aches and pains. And that's the same thing. It's delayed onset muscular soreness. And in these studies, and I think there were two of them that were done at universities, and earthing was the best treatment ever found for delayed onset muscular soreness. Massage helps to some extent. Um, Electrical stimulation helps, but earthing really does the job.
Absolutely. All right. Moving on here, we do have another pretty common question. This is something that I'm not sure if you have more information based on studies that have been done into this. Brenda and Lenny are asking if the patches reduce inflammation in the entire body or only where the patch is specifically located.
The body is a conductor, and you can put the patch anywhere. Um, if you have a specific place that hurts, wouldn't hurt to put the patch right over it. That's a quick way to treat it, but really the body is a very good electron circulation system. And you put the patch on the palm of your hand or the ball of your foot or anywhere really, it'll help.
Absolutely. Right. And then moving on here, we do have another question from Chico asking actually something that they'd noticed since grounding over the last month and a half, that previously where they had needed to get up and use the restroom 1 to 2 times a night, now after grounding, they're finding that that's not the case anymore. They can sleep through that. I'm not sure if you have any information on studies as to why that might be.
Well, that could be a prostate situation, which is very common. Um, Hyperplasia in the prostate gland tends to it's an inflammation, and it tends to keep you from peeing. So if you can't get it all out, then you're going to wake up in the night and you're going to have to go. Um, I think it makes total sense to me. Any inflammation in the prostate need to take care of.
Absolutely. And I just want to share a quick story that we had received from one of our friends on Facebook here, from our friend Catherine. letting us know that she wanted to let us know that she takes 0 meds and had been having high blood pressure over the past several months. And grounding has actually brought it down into a normal range. So again, just asking why, had not heard of grounding before. And so it really is something that kind of lives under our noses for most of our lives here, but we're working our best to make sure that more and more people get knowledgeable about it. But as far as, the reduction in blood pressure, I know we talked about that a little bit. I think, not sure if would have a little more to elaborate on that subject as well.
Actually, somebody else did a study, not us. I mean, we're not surprised that blood pressure goes down because the blood circulates better. It's thinner. But somebody did a study. Go to the Earthing Institute website, and there's this. I think the study is there. Maybe we should find it and put it up on the web.
Absolutely.
Wasn't us. And some people complain. We do all the research and we find these results and we have bias. No, this research, when Flint started doing this research, at the same time, 2 scientists in, where are they? Hungary, not Hungary, Poland. Yes, Warsaw, Poland. Medical doctors were tired of seeing the patients come in over and over and over again, and they decided to try grounding. And they had all kinds of great results. They found out that it was good for example, it was good for your metabolism. It was good for osteoporosis. That's great stuff that they did. And that had nothing to do with us. We have since been in contact with them. The so-calls, the father and I think a father and daughter, both medical doctors. One is an MD, PhD, and the other is a MD, and they were working at an institute in um, Warsaw, and they had great results. And they have put their names on some of the review papers that we have published. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yes.
And then moving forward from there, I know that grounding is always going to be beneficial not only for our bodies, but can help with the mental state as well. But asking specifically if there's any benefit from being grounded while meditating with regards to, I guess, the act of meditating itself.
Actually, there's research on that going on at Deepak Chopra's institute out in California. I don't know what kinds of results they've gotten, but I know they're using the chair, the grounding chair, for meditation. And I don't know what the results are, but my impression is they like it.
Can absolutely help calm the mind quite a bit, having to deal with all the physical stress on your body as well. So we do have another comment here from our friend Eve, letting us know she plays a sport called pickleball about 3 hours per day, and afterwards is just absolutely wiped out, and it's time for a nap after that. Was wondering if grounding after playing, I know we had talked about grounding with sports, but wondering if her energy would be replenished through grounding afterwards.
Should be. ATP
Absolutely.
is the secret of energy. And no ATP, no energy. So it's basic biochemistry. It's been known for a long time. Adenosine triphosphate is the energy molecule of life, and it runs everything. It runs your muscles, your nerves, your digestive system, your brain, all your organs. Everything runs on ATP. Every cell needs it, and it's needed for healing. Like if you bump yourself, if you hurt yourself, one of the things that has to happen in healing is that cells have to go to a place where there's injury to do the repair work. I knew a guy, I worked in Woods Hole, Massachusetts at the Marine Biology Laboratory. His name was Jay Lash, and he did a study on, I think it was lizards. And he would put little droplets of dye in a cell. So he could see the cell in the microscope. And then he'd make a cut some distance away, and he'd watch the cell migrate to the cut. And that's what they do. Cells migrate to an injury. There are people who study that. The way cells migrate is a very important and very interesting topic. There's a lot of research on it, how they crawl around, and they are attracted to a site of injury, and they do the work that they have to do. One of the things they do is they secrete free radicals to destroy bacteria or any other thing that has gotten in under the skin. The body doesn't care whether the skin was broken or not. It sends the mop-up team in anyway, whether its skin is broken or not. If the skin is broken, there are electrical events set up that attract the cells. The skin is a battery, and when you break the skin, it's like a short circuit. There's a pulse of electricity that goes out and cells migrate. And to do that migration, they need ATP. And when they get to the injury site, they may have to manufacture proteins for repair purposes. And that takes energy. So if you're grounded, all of those processes work much better. And in the DOM study, the delayed onset muscular soreness studies, they followed the blood cells, and earthing definitely helps with getting the right cells to the right place at the right time to do the repair work. Very interesting stuff. It's a very important area of research. You can tell that the NIH is very interested in this because when they publish their papers, they have color illustrations, and they're expensive. So there are big grants involved just in studying how cells migrate, and it turns out that cells are constantly circulating in your body. In fact, they'll have a particular area. It's like an area code. Like the cells answer any messages in this area. They don't listen for over there. They're interested in this area. And they go right to a place where there's an injury. But they're on patrol. And that takes energy, takes ATP. And if you don't have ATP, if your energy is low, it's going to take longer for an injury to be repaired. The body knows how to do it, but it needs the juice and it needs the electrons.
Absolutely. From there, I know I don't have the specific numbers on this next one, but our good friend John is actually asking what percentage of the population do you guess sleeps grounded every night? I'm not sure if we do have any kind of studies or research on that.
I don't know. It'd be good to know. Somebody should find out. It's a good idea. One of the things, Dr. Chevalier discovered is that I think it was Medicare or some insurance group did a study of elderly people, how often they get strokes. And they found out that the higher you live in a building, the greater your chances of having a stroke. And that's because you're further and further away from the earth. Every story you go up, it's 10 or 15 more volts between the top of your head and your feet. And so if you live in a high rise, you really need to have grounding, and they should have good grounds in their electrical systems. And it's that easy. You just need to plug it in to the grounding outlet.
Absolutely. All right, going down here, we do have another success story. Our friend Jennifer here just letting us know her sister had actually had frozen shoulder. And after using an earthing patch and a uni mat, She's practically cured at this point, where previously she could not move her arm above the elbow level, and now is fully functional and has full movement of her arm and shoulder, which is, of course, just amazing.
That's
I'm not
great.
sure. Yeah,
That was an inflammation for sure.
absolutely.
And there are other ways to loosen it up, but I'm glad that the earthing did the job.
Right. Well, with that, moving forward from there, actually, I do have one here wondering if you could touch just a little more on the direct relationship between grounding and ATP.
A direct relationship?
Just what is kind of the relationship between grounding and how that affects ATP and the energy sources in the cells?
Well, it's the mitochondria in every cell that generate the ATP that runs the cell. And it turns out it's kind of a mirror image to what goes on in plants, because in plants, the sunlight uh, activates electrons and they become excited and they get the energy of the electron gets stored in a chemical bond in sugar, for example. And the sugar sits there. You don't have to eat it right away, but it lasts forever. But if you eat the sugar, that energy from the sun is in the glucose molecule. And your body, your cells digest that glucose molecule, and out comes the energy, the excited electron that's been living in that sugar molecule for years sometimes. If the sugar is on the shelf or in your biscuit that's been sitting there, or your cookie, uh, that electrons, those excited electrons, they came from the sun. All the electrons come from the sun, and they get excited by the sun. The plant incorporates them into molecules that we eat, and that sunlight, that energy comes back out, and we use it to go up and down the stairs and to repair our tissues and to uh, do our athletic events and all the other stuff that we do.
I do have actually a really great question here, um, asking what has surprised you the most over the years from the research you've done on the subject of earthing?
By the way, the questions are really good. I thank everybody for really good questions. And that is a juicy one. And I would say the most important study was on the blood viscosity, um, because cardiovascular disease is the number one killer in the world. Worldwide, it's the number one killer. And every type of cardiovascular issue seems to be helped easily by connecting to the earth. It's so simple. So I would say I'm really excited about that. That is huge, huge. Number one killer in the world. Can't beat that.
Absolutely. All right, moving forward from there, actually touching on all of our talk about the sun bringing energy. We have someone asking if do you have more electrons available in a sunny climate, actually.
Actually, you have more electrons available during the day when the sun is shining. The voltage on the surface of the earth, Clint found this out. He found documentation of this. They measured the voltage on the earth um, at different times of day. It'll vary with different parts of the world, different soil conditions, and so on. But when the sun is shining, there are more electrons and there's bigger voltage, bigger negativity to the earth, um, and that's important. And another thing about that, the same thing, is that there's a rhythm in the earth's field, and that rhythm it's called a Zeitgeber. It's a time setter. for your biological clocks. Very important for women's reproductive cycle that they be connected to the earth to set their rhythms. It all happens in the pineal gland, which is the pace setter for the various rhythms. Cortisol rhythm. You can't sleep if your cortisol is too high. You need to have a level, you need to have a proper cortisol rhythm up and down to sleep well. And if it's too high at night, you won't sleep. And millions of people can't sleep. And it's a horrible condition. Insomnia is rampant. And it's so simple, correct. Uh, Unbelievable.
And actually, we do have a pretty fascinating question here. I don't think we've seen this before, but friend Rini is asking if we've found any areas of the body that may not ground due to injury. So if a prior injury might prevent proper grounding distribution.
What injury can do is it can block the flow of everything, of energy, of electrons, of nourishment, um, and those are little inflammations that need to be cleared out so that everything works better. Sometimes the reason your elbow hurts is because it's not getting energy. It's not getting energy. It's not getting ATP. It's not getting circulation uh, because of some damage or injury further up the arm. So yes, you need to have the pathways have to be open for the energy to flow.
Absolutely.
Keep you healthy. Keep all your joints working well.
And moving off or actually moving forward with the topic of injury, our friend Karen did say that she had recently hurt her wrist and has been using a patch on it just very recently, but it's felt that it's almost started to feel a little bit worse, before getting better, at least at the onset of that. And I think we have heard a decent amount of that before, as far as darkest before the dawn, but if you could elaborate.
Exactly. That's in fact a principle of healing, well known in homeopathy, for example. Homeopathy makes whatever your condition is worse before it gets better, and that seems to be a general principle. Maybe it's getting more sensation, which is a good thing.
Absolutely. All right, we do have another comment here, actually, moving back towards our topic of energy, asking if grounding can increase your appetite, actually, as they do feel like they eat more and are actually drawn to eating more healthy foods.
Sounds good to me. I'm getting hungry, uh, and you folks are probably also. Uh, and like I say, you're more active if you don't have aches and pains. You can get out and move, or you can do whatever you want to do, and you'll be able to do more, and that'll increase your appetite for sure.
Absolutely.
It's simple. All this stuff is dirt simple.
It seems, fairly interconnected. Absolutely. With that, we have our next question is from Jeanette, just asking what the major difference between the mat and the patch would be as far as the application or the benefits.
Well, it's great to have your whole body close to the ground, the source of grounding. Um, and by the way, there are two things that can happen. There's field coupling, which means that uh, you're not in direct contact with a conductor that's connected to the earth, but it's close to your body. And that is good for the biological rhythms that you pick up from the earth's rhythmic field. And then there's direct coupling, which is conductive coupling if your skin is in contact with the product. So both of those are important. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's
Absolutely. So I think, the two devices can be used pretty broadly. What's the most comfortable and convenient for you. Absolutely, definitely helpful with all that information there. Again, making sure most of your body is grounded will be the most important there. We do have another question from Eve asking just about her sister who does have rheumatoid arthritis in her fingers. Wondering if she should place her hands directly on the earth or just having her feet touch the earth will kind of indirectly benefit her hands at the same time.
I'd say either one will work.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'd be interested to know if putting her hands right on the wet grass helps more than putting a patch on her foot. But the foot is really good, and the palm of the hand. Both of those are just hugely connected. The feet have thousands of points, acupuncture points, lots of acupuncture points, and lots of sweat glands. There's a very good connection through the feet, and it'll connect everywhere in the body.
Absolutely.
I appreciate people's success stories.
Absolutely.
They really
Well,
help me. They help people a lot.
so, a lot of us do have a lot of common situations that we do find ourselves in. So being able to share that, making sure that we're not alone here, I think is extremely important. And with that being said, we actually do have another success story from our friend Jennifer here, letting us know her fitness trainer has always suffered from knee pain and back aches during her monthly menstrual cycle. 3 weeks in from using an earthing bed mat and Unimat has experienced zero back and knee pain during that same cycle. The first pain-free month that she's had in years, and just an incredible response to earthing. And did want to throw in an extra thank you to Clint for the products here as well.
Great. Good news. There's a lot of good news in earthing. Good news is good.
All right, so I think we are getting close to the end here. So I think in just wrapping up here, I did want to just say thank you so much, Dr. Oschman, for joining us and for just all the wonderful information that you've been here to share with us. It's incredibly appreciated. And just wanted to thank all of you out there for submitting your questions and for educating yourselves on the benefits of grounding. If you haven't done so already, we do highly recommend following us on social media and subscribing to our newsletter so that you can make sure you're in the loop with regards to our upcoming webinars, sales, new product announcements, and even more. And as well, we do have the Earthing YouTube channel where you can find all of our webinar recordings as well after they air. Just once again, did want to say just another thank you again to you, Dr. Oschman, for joining us again, and to our CS team in the background helping up in the comments. And thank you all for watching as well. Hope you have a great rest of the day.
You did a great job with the questions.
Thanks. It was great spending time with you.
I like it.